Peace and greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sovereignities podcast. This evening, we are hitting healing part three. All right. And in our healing part three, we're looking at healing through rest, writing, and meditation. Today, we're not going to do a meditation, but this particular episode will open us up to a 7-day series of live meditations with me. And we're going to do that because it's directly connected to the challenge that is a part of my community. And, I want to bring you all into it so we could finish strong, right? I think that's important. So let's jump right in. Let's talk a little bit about rest and we'll touch on writing, not too heavy, and then we'll get into some of the different forms of meditation that we can use toward our healing. Now, remember, in our very first part of this healing 3-part series, we had a very light talk about healing. And one of the things that I really got into were, the three components or the three important things that are present when we talk about healing. And one of them, or the first one, was faith. The other one is, understanding that the unseen is very much a part of the healing process as well, and having a connection to the creator is also a key component of that healing process, right? And remember, we're talking about healing that goes beyond just the physical body. And even though some of or the healing modalities and so on that we spoke of in part 2, and even this today in part 3, are focused on or will be focused on the physical body, meditation and even writing helps us to heal through our emotions and to heal through some of the spiritual challenges that we may have. All right. So it's, as we have this discussion, and as I share with you, just open up yourself to the understanding and open up yourself to, just to see how healing can happen through all of these modalities. The most important thing, though, is application, right? So that healing component is important through faith, through understanding that there's an unseen, and also that connection to creator. Those three must be very much present. And application, again, is important. If you don't take the modalities and use them, then you don't see them working in your lives. You don't see how they begin to affect the mind and the spirit, because it's the effect that you're looking for. You're looking for that effect because it's the evidence, right? The evidence of healing taking place. Unless you're someone who can sense it or can perceive it even before they see the evidence of it. So again, this evening we're looking at healing through rest, writing, and meditation. So one of the very first things I wanted to bring up was living within the daylight hours, right? Do your best to live with the daylight hours. I am a night owl, right? And I think scientifically this is a real thing, the night owl versus the lark, right? Night owls are programmed to rest really late, right? So you won't find a night owl resting at 9 o'clock. I mean, unless they're, like beat, you know. But they tend to rest maybe 1, 2 later on in the evening hours or the nighttime hours, very early in the morning hours, and they tend to wake up very late. Now, though I identify as a night owl, I will say I am an early riser as well too. Many times I'm a sunrise chaser, so I won't necessarily say that I rise up late. Larks, on the other hand, sleep or rest very early, and they rise very early. So they go to bed very early in the evenings, 9 o'clock sometimes. I don't know who does that, but whatever. No, I'm not knocking any of the larks, but they also rise early. So I think that's important to consider, understand what that circadian rhythm is for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about circadian rhythms. We won't get too deep into it, nor will we, dig into rest and sleep too deeply, because I've done and covered podcasts on sleep already and also on the circadian rhythm. So you can go back and look at and listen to those older podcasts to refresh your memory. But when the sun goes down, especially when the sun goes down earlier, I think it's really important for us to think about how we shift the way we eat, how we shift the things that we do. So when the sun goes down earlier, our schedules need to shift as well too, right? And sometimes depending on where you work and the type of position, job, or entrepreneurial endeavor that you're engaging in, the shifting around of your schedule may not be possible. But in many ways, we need to find a way to shift so that we are flowing with the movement of the sun as well. Because it's really important. I'll say that because many times we find ourselves sitting under light, artificial light, for extended hours. Many times we're sitting under fluorescent bulbs as well too, which is not necessarily a healthy thing. And so what that does is it overexposes the eyes and the rods and the cones in our eyes to artificial light for extended periods of time. That's not a healthy thing, right? So making sure that we have light meals and then we turn off the electronics. And turning off the electronics literally means that we're not laying in the bed just listening to music. And I understand sometimes that's a part of maybe your evening wind down process. So it's important for us to set a timer, set an alarm, and then once we've played that music for a certain amount of time, the devices literally shut down, or we take them out of the room and let them charge outside of the room while we go back to our resting space and rest without the device, any device. That's really crucial, and that's holding respect for the body, right? Practice hibernation, right? And as I'm speaking and sharing about this, those of you who will be joining us later on in the year or later on next year, it really it's really important to think about spring, summer, fall, winter. During the winter, you want to practice hibernation because you want your body, depending on where you live, you want your body to be responsive to the weather, the temperature changes. And, again, when the sun goes down earlier, there are shifts and changes. Eat lighter, turn off electronics, reduce the amount of exposure to light. That's really helpful. Every one of us generates a circadian cycle or circadian rhythm. And circa means around, and cadian or dian actually is a derivative of diem, and diem means day. So when we think about these two, it just talks about around the day, right? So all living organisms on this planet, and I could only speak for this planet, all living organisms generate a circadian rhythm. And that circadian rhythm is specific to animals who have a lifespan beyond, you know, for more than several days, because some do not. And if they don't necessarily develop a circadian rhythm, right? The idea of the circadian rhythm is a pattern of functionality that occurs over extended periods of time, and that happens with our plants and various types of plants. It can be observed specifically, and at one point those rhythms were taught to be directly connected to the trajectory of the sun, right? But we all develop an internal clock. And that internal clock, yeah, we say it's a 24-hour clock, but we say it's 24-hour because society as we know it now has developed a 24-hour clock, right? But that clock is also present within the brain, and it helps to communicate daily circadian rhythms that signal to other parts of the brain, but it also signals to other organs in the body. All right, so that's part of why we can sync. And that circadian rhythm helps to identify when we want to sleep, when we want to eat, when we want to drink, when we want to, maybe take a nap or rest. So those things are really important. As we talk about circadian rhythms, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about Dr. Meran. So this was a French scientist, and this French scientist actually began to look at plants, the leaves of plants and their flowers, because what he noticed was that so he was observing heliotropism. So heliotropism, helio again is the sun, is a Greek word that's associated with the sun. All right. So heliotropism would mean these are plants that are responsive to, or seemingly responsive to, the trajectory of the sun during the day. So he would notice that the leaves will open out during the day, and then in the evening time when the sun goes down, the leaves close and the plants bow, right? But more importantly too, these particular plants they follow again the trajectory of the sun across the sky throughout the day. And I think one of the plants that he focused on was what's called Mimosa pudica. Mimosa pudica is like a little pink cheerleader's chair. I don't know, it's like a pink puffball with elongated leaves that look like fingers. And we used to call them, I can't remember. They grow all across the Caribbean, but they also grew here. But you see them more on the larger trees. In the Caribbean, they would grow like weeds, and when you touch them, they're so sensitive they'll close up. But if you don't touch them, they'll remain open, and when the sun goes down, they close. So he observed that plant and actually thought that it was the sun having that effect on the plant, or the plant directly responding to the sun's movement. So one of the things he did was he put it in the dark, right? He's a scientist, so of course you'll experiment. And I'm sharing all of this because I am always very fascinated about the way biology, it just works. It's so seamlessly connected, and there are all these parallels that we could draw with all living organisms, creatures, humans, plants, right? And so one of the things that he did was just put it in a pure dark, completely dark environment. Of course, he's running an experiment, so there's a control. And for those of you who don't know, go research. Go dig it up. Click like mode. But what he noticed was, even though the plant was not exposed to sunlight for several days, they observed, or he was able to observe, that the plant followed the same movement during the morning, the daylight hours, and the evening. And so what he deduced was that the plant's functioning is functioning off of a rhythm that is not necessarily influenced by external influences, right? Or the external environment, in this case, the sun. All right. I say that it is over time, the plant over time and many generations has developed that particular rhythm because of the external environment, or the sun. And so it's now encoded in its DNA, and so it functions naturally like that. That's what That's what I think. But what the scientists are saying is very different. I'm not a scientist, so I could be wrong. But if we're thinking about the way that plant functions, um, I when I read it, I actually thought about the sunflower, right? And if you think about the sunflower's name is Helianthus annuus. So Helianthus, helio again is that Greek word that means sun. So it has the same, it functions the same way. I remember when I was in Cuba, I lived in Cuba for a little while, and the the university that I attended was in the campus, it was in the countryside. And it was a university that focused on agriculture as well as technology. And one of the things they prided themselves on was having, labs and an entire field where they grew lots of ground provisions, and they grew, I don't know if it was just for experimentation, but they had a farm, a working farm, fully functioning farm. And they also they grew sunflowers, acres and acres of sunflowers. They also were surrounded by acres and acres of oranges. They had orchards and just so much food there. But I would love to stand at a certain time in the evening and just watch the sunflowers all in unison move, with the sun. And I would always think it was from like that direct interaction with the sun. But anyway, I say all of that to actually connect back to the fact that we too have circadian rhythms that have developed within our system over time. And so we have to know what those rhythms are. And human people are like plant people in many ways, right? So your biological clock needs these distinctions between the waking and rest. All right, the circadian rhythm is no exception. So we too need that distinction between wake and rest. And that brings me to talking about sleep and rest, right? I think it's really important to consider that we have all of these different stages of sleep, and we're not going to get into the different stages of sleep because we need an expert in the building, on our Sovereignties podcast to actually dig into it. But there are different stages of sleep, and each stage of sleep provides benefits and opportunities for us to grow, like literally to grow, and to be able to allow our brain. It's not just about rest. I think when we talk about sleep and rest, the very first thing we envision is that, oh my gosh, my body weary, I need to sleep, right? Or I need to just close my eyes because I'm tired. This is one of the reasons why it's really important, if you're a person who works throughout the day and your work is not necessarily manual labor, but it is, your work is focused on the use of the brain and thinking and gathering information and learning, not just physical skills that you can learn and apply immediately, but gathering knowledge and data and remembering it and recalling it. One of the things you'll find is that you do get tired, and you get tired and your functioning decreases if you do not have a period of rest in between huge chunks of learning. So that's an important thing to think about, because many times we find ourselves in positions where we're juggling two jobs, or we're working a job and we're trying to handle our own entrepreneurial responsibilities as well, which would be very personal, and maybe your home business, and you find yourself working for extended periods of time. So after you finish one job, you jump right into the next one. And if you do not give your body the opportunity to rest where it gets to the NREM or REM sleep, deep REM sleep, you actually lose the opportunity and lose the opportunity to retain and hold on to mass amounts of information. And that's because what is happening is during the day when we're learning and we're gathering knowledge and information, the part of our brain that actually holds that information is short term, right? It's that short term portion of our brain and of our memory. So it's almost like it is a USB drive that doesn't have too much space on it, right? So it's only short term. So what you would do is you would load information on that short term drive, and then during sleep, where you hit the points of NREM and deep REM sleep, the brain offloads that information from that short-term memory bank to your long-term memory bank, right? And that's in where we call the cortex. So the hippocampus is where that short-term memory is stored, and then during times of deep rest, the brain transfers it. And you're probably saying, well, how do you know that? So scientists were actually able to pinpoint electrical waves that actually show there is movement actually happening between the hippocampus and the cortex. So I'm excited about stuff like this because I'm like, I used to think resting is all about just closing your eyes, your body is tired, your brain, you hear people say your brain is tired, but you don't understand the intricacies of it. So that's important. And I think for many people, they'll say, oh, well, we knew this. I know sometimes we know things, but then when we begin to actually study them and dig into them and use them and apply them to our life, we realize, oh, wow, this is why I'm not retaining XYZ. This is why I can't reflect on the experiences that I've had during the day or the experiences that I've had, and now I have patterns in my life that I can't break because I'm up, I'm not sleeping, I'm not giving my body and my brain time to rest and time to transfer information from short term to long term. So what actually happens is, think about a bucket, right? Think about that USB drive that I spoke about. When it's full, ain't nothing more can go on it. It's done. And you have to find another one, right? And if you can't find another one, then all of the information that you actually want to attain and retrieve or receive, you can't, because there is a limit as to the amount of storage capacity. So resting and sleep actually provides all of us the opportunity to do that huge transfer to the long-term storage in the cortex. I think that's important. So it serves to shift all of the fact-based memories that we have from the temporary storage to the long term. All right. And then there's this important thing that I wanted to share. Like, we begin dreaming, right? We begin dreaming when we hit REM sleep. So that tells me that we have to rest for long periods of time, that so that the brain can move through all of the different stages of sleep so we could get the full healing. That's why healing through rest is actually part of our conversation today, because we don't realize that resting is actually an opportunity for healing. Because when we get to REM sleep, that's what's needed to heal emotional wounds. We could talk about light spectrum healing as well too. That's something different, and we're not even talking about that. But when it comes to healing emotional wounds, for those of you who are probably saying, well, light therapy, red light. Red light is what would be used for deep emotional healing. REM sleep is needed for that too. This is where we begin to dream, right? And there's a whole lot of details. I won't even, go into it because it will take us beyond. It's now 25 minutes, and I wanted to give you all, just really quick and concise pieces of information about the way each of these, the rest, the sleep, the writing, and the meditation, how these actually help to focus us and helps to provide us an opportunity for healing. All right, so I definitely think understanding that sleep helps the brain's capacity for learning and also to retrieve and hold on to new memories. I think that's important to think about. So when we are thinking about rest for ourselves, but also when we think about rest for our young people or youth, we have to understand what their circadian rhythm is as well too. Maybe they are young people, the children who you're raising. Maybe some of them are larks, right? They get up early and with the rising sun, they're up at 5, they're up at 6, and their brain function, their cortex, which is responsible for thinking and focus, is actually functioning upon you know awakening. With a night owl, it's very different. They do not receive the full extent of their capacity to function until later on in the day. And so by then, for people who go to school or you have a job, most times by the time a night owl is ready to function and roll, the workday is done. So the problem is, depending on the position you are in and the company you work for, they lose a whole lot of a night owl's capacity to function effectively because they tend to wake up late, and the truth is the brain function is not has not kicked into full gear yet. So I think that's something to think about. That's why I found it fascinating that um, the two commodities that seem to be the most, not just the most popular, but the most sought after commodities are oil and coffee. And when I read that, I was like, oil and coffee, both are considered fuel. Both fuel, what fuel for the body, fuel for vehicles, for actual vehicles that we drive, and for this vehicle, which is the physical body. And the body is a vehicle, right? So the problem though with caffeine is that it really it impedes our ability to go through those cycles of rest that we need. I will talk a little bit more about coffee and how it affects us and so on another stage in the game. I also wanted to jump on and talk about dream incubation, right? And you're probably saying, dream incubation, what is that? So during the winter solstice is one of the best times to incubate your dreams. And dream incubation is really about learning how to identify what you want to dream about and creating a space and an environment to do so. And what I'll do in my blog, which is always attached to the podcast for those of you who are listeners, you can read, follow links, and you'll be able to also follow links to different pieces of information that will show you how to do that, right? Beyond just herbs and things like peppermint and spearmint teas that can help, and mugwort is another one that can help. But I'm going to include those links in the description and also in the blog on my website, sovereigneats.com, so that way you can have access to those links and that important information, so you can incubate your dreams as well too and be very strategic about dreaming. Starting a journal and writing is very important because it helps with reflecting, it helps with accountability. It is an accountability, I would say it's an accountability tool for us to actually write after our day is done. So in the evenings or nighttime, it gives us an opportunity to stop and jot down some of the progress that we've made, some of the achievements, some of the mistakes that we've made. And during that process of writing, we reflect. And it's just a great habit. It's just a great habit to have. And another opportunity that we should utilize during that time of journaling is just pausing and writing letters of gratitude, right? And that can be incorporated into your journal. You can literally do that after you reflect on your day's happenings. You can literally include a small letter of gratitude to a person who has impacted your day, or a letter of gratitude for something that has occurred in your journey that the Elohim has constructed, and you know it. You're like, oh, this is the Most High putting this in place, because I've worked for it, because it's a challenge or a charge that I need in order to push me out of my comfort zone and, push me into a place where I could do more. So, writing is a form of expressing emotions, emotions that we may have bottled down, emotions that we may have suppressed, right? So journaling is important, and again, those letters of gratitude, because when we give thanks for anything, or we express gratitude, what we're indeed doing is offering praise. And when we offer praise, praise pulls and brings forward more of what we see and are able to give gratitude and thanks for. So use it as a healing modality, because it helps us with self-care. It helps us with self-love, because maybe you want to write a letter of gratitude to yourself because there was something that you battled with that you were able to actually give up today, or on whatever day that you're thinking about. Maybe it's those squats, those 100 squats that you just couldn't get through, but today you were able to get through 200, right? Maybe it's the difficulty of the push-up, right? My push-ups are lopsided and I'm talking about the Chief Year challenge. Like, my push-ups are not strong, but on the days that I could actually get in the full amount of those push-ups, I am grateful. I'm grateful that the Most High gave me the strength in my muscles. As best as I can say, there are muscles there, right? So it's just a beautiful thing when we're able to see what we've accomplished for the day and look around us and see what we can give thanks for and what we're grateful for, not just in ourselves but in others as well too. So writing is a form of healing. And the last thing I want to touch on is meditation. Meditation brings wisdom, right? So here's a quick quote from Buddha. Meditation brings wisdom. Lack of meditation leaves ignorance. Know well what leads you forward and what holds you back, and choose the path that leads to wisdom. And I've always shared a piece of proverbs that has been shared with me about the fact that wisdom calls, right? So here, meditation brings wisdom. Meditation is very much a form of reflection, just as our writing and our journaling is a form of reflection and an opportunity for accountability. I actually appreciate meditation because it helps to form solutions or bring solutions and can be very corrective in our lives. So there are different forms of meditation, but meditation is a skill. And it's a skill that brings forward peacefulness in our journey. It gives us the opportunity to reap lifelong health benefits. And I mean, I can't even, we could go through the long list of what the benefits are of maintaining a peaceful countenance and just being feeling at peace, right? That's a whole different conversation. Like we could have a whole build on just meditation alone and even just sleep alone, right? So here are some of the things. It's a simple skill that anyone can practice. I will say there are different forms of meditation, and I'm going to share them and share which areas of focus each meditation's style kind of focuses on. But my favorite is guided meditation that is very much visual, and transcendental meditation as well, because it focuses on hekau or mantras or affirmations, right? Those are really crucial, and they can help to again become a corrective tool for us in our journey. Now, meditation actually reduces stress, it strengthens our immune system, and it lowers chances of heart disease, and it helps to improve our emotional IQ, right? Emotional IQ is really important. And as women, for the sisters who are listening, as women, emotional maturity is a key component in womanhood, in being a woman. It's necessary. If you want to be identified as a woman, you have to be emotionally mature. You cannot be, you know, firing off at the mouth. You cannot be irresponsible with your thoughts and with your words, but also with your emotions. That doesn't mean you suppress them. It doesn't mean that you're not free with your feelings, but it does mean that you are thoughtful and conscientious about the way you express them. But you're also aware of them and you're processing them rather than stuffing them down, right? And meditation is very powerful in that way, because meditation will actually, depending on the form and style of meditation, you could actually use it to provide visualizations of corrective behaviors. So if you know you're shooting off at the mouth all the time and there are trigger words that you have journaled about, then you can take those trigger words and bring them into a meditation, specifically a transcendental meditation, and you can use that to help pull you to a place where your response to a trigger is practiced. So rather than shooting off at the mouth when you hear things that trigger you, you're practicing the response. You're visualizing what that response will be. So when it happens in a waking state, because transcendental meditation actually pulls you into trance. The breathing and the mantras put you into a state of trance. But when you're in waking state and those triggers happen again, it wouldn't be new, right? A new response wouldn't really be new because you've already practiced it. It will take some time for you to enforce it. So I'm not saying it's going to work boom, because it's not hypnosis, right? But it is definitely an opportunity for anyone who is working on habits or working on behaviors that they need to correct. It is definitely a great option for you. Meditation can be an opportunity to reflect. Guided meditation is one of my favorite as well, because guided meditation, it gives you the opportunity to have a guide walk you through the meditative steps or the meditative process. sometimes the guide will actually walk you through a visualization. And I love to do those because I call them like meditation journeys, because you can take a person to the bottom of the ocean, you can take them to a jungle, you can take them to the seashore, and being able to visualize and pull yourself out of your current state and use the brain and meditation and visualization to place yourself in a calm environment. Even though you're doing it in the mind, that's going to also affect the body. And when it affects the body, it allows you to recalibrate. All right, so you might be sitting in a room of vultures. You might be sitting in a room where you feel threatened. But if you can alter the state of your mind and create a space of peace there, then you'll be able to regulate and find a way to deal with your reality from a peaceful state and a centered consciousness. All right, and a centered heart, and not from a overwhelmed and flustered place. So I think those are crucial benefits of meditation, very crucial benefits of meditation. And you know, sometimes guided meditation allows you to move through images that can be relaxing, or images that can be empowering if you need empowerment in the moment. Body scan meditation is another option too. Body scan meditation focuses on consciously relaxing different parts of the body, and it helps to develop our mind body consciousness, right? That awareness between what's happening with my body and how does my mind process what's happening with my body, or how my body feels. All right. Walking meditation focuses on the body's physical sensation as it moves. All right. So that's another body mind awareness meditative style or practice that is great for those who are beginners, right? Because I think guided meditation and transcendental meditation are protracted forms or styles of meditation, and it may not be the first one you choose, but one of the first things you could choose is the walking meditation. And again, even the body scan meditation, it can be a little bit shorter. So in closing, this was a lot in such a small amount of time, but in closing, I wanted to share that all month long, I have mentioned Chief Yuya's challenge, and today we touched on 3 of the challenges: writing letters of gratitude, journaling, and meditation, right? Especially meditating daily and journaling daily. So to close off the last 7 days of the challenge, I will host a live meditation for you all to close off the challenge with the Anu family. All right. And this is not the ending or an ending, but a beginning. And it's a beginning because it marks the beginning of a new habit. And that new habit will become a lifestyle and incorporated and become part of your culture, right? How you live daily. So, yes, we're closing off the Gregorian. Yes, I'm doing 7 to close off the challenge, but the challenge was a charge to incorporate different components of physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional practices that we must incorporate and make them ours, so that we can be balanced beings and we can be those master builders and healers that we are charged to be. So here we go. Our live meditations will premiere at 9 p.m. every evening for the next 7 days. Of course, on Sabbath, there will be no meditation. But on Saturday evening, there probably will be, because at 9 o'clock, the sun is down and Yom Rishon or Sunday would have started. So We're going to get them in. Remember, 9 p.m. every evening, no matter what's happening. If you can't catch it live or the premiere, it's okay because you could always go back and listen. Turn the lights off, put on a little bit of incense if you like, or no incense at all, and just enjoy and dig in to that experience. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell us which meditation style you would like next in the comments below. Boom, boom, boom. And we'll make sure we have that experience ready and waiting for you. If you would like anything that's connected with light spectrum or light therapy, and maybe you want a specific color on the spectrum, let me know and we'll try to make that possible and incorporate it into any one of the meditation styles or modalities. Peace and power to you all. Please don't forget, rest well, write those journals, write those letters of gratitude, and pull and bring down what it is that you give thanks for. And do not forget to tune in at 9 p.m. for our live meditations. Peace, everyone.